the Northwest home for paranormal. You're listening to U.S. Phenomenon with your host, Mario Magana.
Good evening. I am your host, Mario Magana. This is U.S. Phenomenon. If this is your first time checking us out, we thank you. If you're a returning friend, thanks for hanging out with us again. You can always text us on our studio hotline at 775-990-5151. Again, I'd like to thank you all for listening and making us the #1 live and local paranormal radio show. Tonight, we uncover stories, the crimes that may have happened right here at Lake Mead. Our guest is someone who continues to be an integral part of the U.S. Phenom show. Our guest tonight, Michael Parker, who has produced over 300 episodes and content related to the mystery of human history, science, the occult, and so-called conspiracy. He hosts his own show called Deprogrammed, who's joining us here tonight. Let me welcome Michael Parker back to the radio show. You can find him on his Twitter handle and his podcast at BeanPod, but his Twitter handle is at Michael Parker LA. Welcome back to U.S. Phenomenon.
Mario, greetings. It is always a pleasure, and I'm honored to be here, brother.
You know, when I send you the text earlier, we text often.
Yep. And
I'll throw some nuggets out there. I'm like, Microsoft, Bill Gates, later, and then nothing really. You're like, no.
You're right.
Yeah, just trying to throw some nuggets out there to see what may be fun. And then I was like, Lake Mead, and you're like, yes, please.
Well, you know what? I mean, this is the kind of story where, first of all, it's straight up real. This is happening. And at the same time, I mean, these are the kind of stories that are fun to talk about. There's history involved. There's mystery involved. There's climate change involved. And I mean, it's just got all of the really interesting aspects that we love to talk about.
And for those who love Vegas, I mean, this is a great story because most of people who go to Vegas are the younger generation now who don't really have much intel about what really was going on in Vegas during the mob days, the Rat Pack days, the mob moving from the East Coast going west like the pioneers did back in the day. I mean, let's be honest, Vegas was built off of the mob.
Yes. And, I mean, Vegas now, I mean, I'm sure that the mob is still involved, but now Vegas is big business. But yes, initially it was built as a place where, we could have gambling, we could launder money. And, it was pretty outlawed these days. They've got amusement parks on top of hotels so that you could bring your children, which, I'm not going to take my kids are in high school and college now, so it's different, but I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't take my kids to Vegas, but the money is in getting families to Vegas, right? So it wasn't as seedy as it once was. Now it's just business.
It really is. I mean, it's all about it's about the Vegas experience.
Yeah.
And there's something for everyone. I mean, maybe someone's not into gambling. You go to the shows, you bring your family. Now there's a kid's pool and the arcade underneath the casino. And it's just endless things. Take the kids out to the dump truck place and scoop dirt and gravel. I mean, there's something for everyone in Las Vegas.
Yeah. And it's interesting because Vegas, I mean, yeah, okay, so it's out in the middle of this desert, and one of the last places that you would first of all think of building a place like this, but on the other hand, it's a perfect kind of place to build like a place like this because you have plenty of space, and it was probably cheap to get that space at the time. Now, up the road, you've got Area 51, you've got Pahrump, Nevada, Art Bell's hometown, you've got Lake Mead, which we're going to talk about. I mean, it's a really interesting place all around.
The dynamics, for those who may be interested, the history goes back. If you have a chance, I would say go to the Mob Museum in Las Vegas. I'm not plugging anything, but just if you're interested in like the gangster mob movies and you've seen like the Carlitos Way and you've seen
Casino.
The Godfather and Casino, and this would be a great place for you to kind of get some of that that history of the Vegas mob in this museum. Now, according to sources out there, the mob really took place during the 60s, 70s, and just was coming to an end in the early 80s. So the timing of what was found in Lake Mead really sparked an interest for me, because I was like, okay, wait a second. This has to be mob related.
Sure. Well, you know what? I mean, I'm trying to find this quote here. Okay, so Nevada City's former mayor, this guy named Oscar Goodman, what he said to the Associated Press on Monday, he said, quote, "The reservoir is not a bad place to dump a body." Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and so now we've got 2 bodies that have been found, and Lake Mead, we'll just talk about the lake too, there's a lot of unusual aspects of this man-made reservoir. And yeah, I mean, if you're going to throw some bodies somewhere, I mean, and the lake is super deep and it's right there, put them in a barrel and chuck them out the back.
Right. It really boils back to that. I mean, Lake Mead, I was looking at I must have not clipped it. Shoot, did I not clip it? I did not. Well, that's unfortunate. I had the size and depth of Lake Mead, and I was just in awe of the size of Lake Mead. I was like, holy smokes, this thing it's the world's largest reservoir.
Mario, I actually have it because I pulled it up too. Okay, so this thing, when it's all filled up, it's 120 miles long.
That's right.
And its maximum depth, which, it's far from that now, and that's why we're finding these bodies, but at its deepest point is 532 feet. That's a deep lake. This is a gigantic amount of water and it's supplying water to Arizona, Nevada, California. And, the primary inflow for it is the Colorado River. Now we've got this, it's weird to say unprecedented, because we do have these cyclical periods of drought, but this one right now that we're in is really, really bad. And I think that they said that one of these bodies was found in an area that would have been depleted by at least 100 feet, I think.
To go back, for those who have not been paying attention, you must be sleeping underneath a rock. But okay, the reservoir at Lake Mead has depleted to levels where we're now they are fine. Not we, because I ain't finding anything. That are so low that it's unprecedented, as you said, that this is the stuff that they're finding now. This barrel with the human body in it, what was it? The paddle boarder. Now look, people use this place as it was a what do I want to call it? Recreation. There was some recreation there, and look,
big time.
There's a hazard. Last thing I'm going to be doing. You have to know your inherent risk when you're playing with water. Mm-hmm. You do, and I don't care what you do. And here's a PSA. But remember, if you're going to be out in the water, boat responsibly, wear your life jacket. And I'm not saying because you're out there doing everything. I mean, what, you slip, you fall, you get a cramp, boom, you're done. You're toast.
Yeah.
And the water doesn't change. That water is always at the same temperature. So, I mean, how long do you got? You got, 45 minutes and you're toast, depending on what the temperature is. If it's 54 degrees, you don't got much time.
Yeah. And, I in a lake like this, which, you can still see the marinas, and there's lakes all throughout the Southwest now that are in this same predicament where they just, the water levels have gone so low that like intake areas are now exposed. And personally, I mean, I love boating. I love going out to lakes and things, but I probably wouldn't go out these days just because I wouldn't want to be super depressed by how bad it's gotten.
Yeah. And not that we're going to, do a full show on climate change or anything of that nature. What we really want to point out is that, to be honest with you, this grabbed my attention and was like, ooh, yes, please, let's do a show about what the possibilities are here. Because think about this. They're saying that the body that was found in the barrel, he was shot. He still had his clothes on.
That's right.
And that he looked like he had been dressed in the 70s or early 80s. Now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and family, well, I don't know if any of my family listens, but anybody who's out here listening,
Right.
I mean, this is perfect. I'm like, oh yeah, this definitely is Mob. Now, if you're out there, the Mob is listening right now. Look, we respect you. We're not, we're putting this out there. We want to have fun with it. But which one of the mobs was it? Was it Jimmy? Was it, which mob? Who was a part of this whole mob boss? And was it Bugsy? Was it Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, or was it Meyer Lansky? I mean, it could have been any of those guys, any of those, mob bosses back in the day.
Mario, it could have just been local bad guys too. I mean, definitely this is probably a mob hit of some kind, but it could have just, it could have been low level mob. But yeah, they found him when they found these skeletal remains in this barrel. You're right. I think they said they saw the belt buckle, they saw his shirt, and it's over the bones of this human body. Now, they think that this body comes from the 70s. We didn't have a lot of DNA technology at the time. So right now they're going through all these missing people records that they don't know who this guy or gal, I think it's a guy, who they don't know who this person is.
It'll be interesting to see if the DNA matches of anybody. And well, here's the other thing too, dental records. So hopefully, I mean, that may play a part into this as well. I think what really strikes me on this whole case is how many more are there out there in Lake Mead? The question is Lake Mead, but other lakes, Lake Tahoe,
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just the beginning of uncovering what the mob may have done and what others may have done. Look, Ted Bundy said it the best. When they went to Ted asking him questions about the Green River Killer, the Riverman, and said, "Oh, here's your," he was doing profiling, and they were using Ted to help them figure this out. Now, I'm not saying that this could lead into others, but Lake Tahoe, we know that from definitely other experiences out there. I'm lost for words when I say experiences, but we know the mob was in Lake Tahoe as well.
Yeah,
trying to diversify.
Mario, I personally haven't disposed of that many bodies, and actually I haven't disposed of any. And but I would say these days, if I were going to do it, if I had to do it for some reason, man, I would go with some kind of a fire or sulfuric acid or something, because here's the problem. Okay, you put a human body in a barrel, you shot this guy, put him in a barrel, you chunked him out the boat, and most likely the people involved with that probably these days are dead. But you don't think for a second that, okay, so eventually there's going to be a drought that's so bad that this guy that we're chunking out in this deep man-made reservoir is someday going to be found. But it's like the internet, man. Once it's out there, it's out there. And, so it's not just one body. Then they find another body. And the second body that they find, I think it was two women who found it, is actually, it's like a, SpongeBob episode or something, or Pirates of the Caribbean kind. They're finding bones sticking out of the dirt. And so to your point, yeah, absolutely. It seems to make sense that over time, there's just going to be more of this, because back in the day, we threw a lot of people in lakes if we were trying to get rid of evidence.
I mean, just watch Casino or even Goodfellas,
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't seen those movies, I mean, they're terrifying to think that the mob may have done that. And case in point, watch The Godfather. I know that they have a new series out on Paramount Plus, which I started watching, and I'm not big into it, but the mob doesn't want their secrets revealed.
No. And I'm no expert on the mob. These days, I mean, the mob has competition, from like cartels, um, and then groups coming in from other countries. But yeah, one time, I mean, the mob was kind of the top of the food chain of the underworld here in the US. And when you talk about the Southwest adjacent to Vegas, well, yeah, it was certainly driven by the mob. So, I mean, I think it would be highly, you know, almost unlikely that these bodies weren't related to, well, certainly the guy in the barrel. I mean, come on, if that's not a mob hit. But the other person that was found embedded in sediments, I don't know what happened there, but
I mean, I'll take my guess. I mean, slip, fall, they fell in the lake. I've never been to Lake Mead. I don't know what the water quality is in regards to like how rough it may be during that season. How many boaters were out there making wakes? Tearing up the lake. Jet skiers. I call jet skiers water lice. It just the thing that people need to remember, especially in something that deep, you got to be careful, because if you slip and you fall in and you don't have the proper gear, now we're talking about some serious hazards here. One, hypothermia may set in if you don't have a life jacket on. If you fall off and a boat hits you, boom, then you're unconscious, toast, you become, fish bait.
Yep. Well, so the second body that they found, so this just happened on Saturday.
Right.
Are we Tuesday? We're Wednesday. Okay, so this just happened on Saturday, 2:00 in the middle of the afternoon. The Lake Mead recreation area, they put out, I'm trying to find this document. They made an official statement about it. I'm trying to find it here.
Well, while you're looking for that, if you haven't had a chance to check out the podcast or you missed some of it, you can always subscribe to the podcast by going to onairmario.com, click on our podcast link, and you can subscribe. Also, we'll check in with Mark Christopher, who will have the latest intel on the body counts for our paranormal story of the week. So you were able to find your
No, I'm not finding it. I'm kind of slightly disappointed here, but let me just read this. So the water level has dropped so much over the last 30 to 40 years that where the person was located, if a person were to drop the barrel, this is the first body, into the water and it sinks, you're never going to find it unless the water level drops, clearly. So this is Homicide Lieutenant Ray Spencer of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police. But that's what's happened. The water level has dropped and made the barrel visible, and the barrel didn't move. It didn't wash up. This is where it was. But what people may not believe, and it's absolutely true, it's not just bodies that are in the bottom of Lake Mead.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's right.
Ooh.
There's more. You want to hear about it?
Yes.
Okay, so not only are there these bodies, but at the bottom of Lake Mead, there's a Boeing B-29 Superfortress, and this is a big aircraft. It crashed in 1948. They were testing some kind of a missile guidance system. They called it a sun tracker. And there's also a few other airplanes that are in Lake Mead. Not only that, there was also a town that was flooded so that they could make Lake Mead. And it was called Thomas, Nevada. And St. Thomas was purchased by the U.S. federal government and abandoned as the waters of Lake Mead submerged the town in the 1930s. So, I mean, this thing is just ripe for horror movies and ghost movies. And so it's not just, the occasional mob hit that's out there. There's aircraft, there's a small town, and God knows what else.
Oh man.
Right?
I love the fact that this just reeks of conspiracy all over the place. What was the United States government doing in putting in Lake Mead to hide? What skeletons are in the United States arsenal that are at the bottom of Lake Mead? Obviously a B-52 Fortress. I wonder if they got any JSFs or F-22s in the bottom.
Who knows, man? I mean, okay, so and presumably that was, human error or mechanical error or something. But yeah, this is a Boeing B-29 Superfortress that's down there. And, and then there's, a few just regular civilian planes. But this body of water is so gigantic that, to me, it's almost unlikely that you're not going to find more bodies. With it being that close to Vegas, it's unlikely that they don't find more bodies.
When we come back, because we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, we'll talk about other opportunities, or I shouldn't say opportunities, but possibilities. We're going to check in with Mark Christopher for our paranormal story of the week. And we'll take a couple text calls if they come in. If you have a story that you would like to share, or maybe you want to be a part of the program, you can always text us at 775-990-5151. Thank you for making us the number one local live paranormal radio show. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Tell your friends, tell everyone. We're live, we're local. We don't even charge you for the podcast. It's free, for God's sakes. Why would you need to pay 15 cents a day? Ridiculous. Nothing. You shouldn't pay for water either. That's how I look at it, as I like to say. So if you have a friend who maybe they've had an encounter, maybe they went to Lake Mead, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. Our guest tonight is Michael Parker, joining us from his own radio program, Deprogrammed, and we thank you for coming to hang out with us this evening. We'll be back. You're listening to U.S. Phenomenon. All right, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Mark. Welcome back to U.S. Phenomenon. Interesting with the paranormal story of the week, with all the intel that Mark Christopher has given us. What's interesting to me is the different possibilities about what Lake Mead brings to the table now. Look, okay, so we found 2 bodies, plus, what else is out there? What strikes me about this whole case is now we get to find out about things that we didn't really, what we pushed aside or we brushed to the side, the mob. Okay, yes, we know they built Vegas. Vegas was built by the mob. They invested in it back in the day. They really put their stamp in the mark. Okay, if this case, the guy in the barrel, we'll just call him the person, the body in the barrel. If in fact this body in the barrel, not a message in a bottle, but if this body in the barrel reeks to high heaven like it's a mob case, and everyone's speculating it's mob. It could be local mob too. Back in the day when these casinos still had not the surveillance that they had, they would walk in the catwalks and things of that nature, where they were doing the old school surveillance, like in the movie. What was that movie? Was it 21, where the Kevin Spacey and he's got a bunch of these kids that are from the university and they go to Vegas for the weekend. They're counting cards and things like that. And what's interesting about that, it kind of goes back where the guy who was the security, he was like, your dumb computers can't, fix or find some of these inherent traits. And the guy was the muscle, would take these people out back and beat the holy hell out of them to freak them out from coming back to Vegas and stealing Vegas money, by counting cards and things of that nature. This also, I'm going to put this out there and see what you think. What if this was security from a casino from back in the day who was like, you know what? You've been counting cards. I'm done with you. Boom. Put him in the barrel. Put some cement in there, liquid cement. Off he goes.
Here's what here's what they think they know. Because, yeah, you're right. I mean, it could be any of these things. They do think that this person was late 70s or early 80s. And the way that they think they know that is because, and they don't say what brand it is, but the particular pairs of shoes, imagine this, so you find the body in the barrel, he is still clothed. So whatever pair of shoes this person had on them, that's what leads them to believe that this is mid 70s, early 80s.
What's interesting to me is, was the body still intact? I mean, did it decompose? I mean, I guess I want to know that because it's in the water,
Right.
cold. I mean, but then like what bugs got in there? I mean, I'm speculating.
Well, check
Shoot,
this.
how did the clothes even?
Right. Well, check this out. Okay, so there's an article in Daily Mail, and this was on the 9th. Yeah, I believe it's on the 9th. Okay, so this article was written by a person named Andrea Cavalier, and it's got the photos of the person that was found in the sediments. It shows pictures of the lake and some marinas. It shows the pictures of the barrel. It does. I think what I'm looking at here right now is, I suppose this is the body. I mean, and it looks like, when you see a mummy that's atrophied a great deal and it's wrapped in rags. So,
Yes.
you could still tell that it was human. You can't really tell what sex it is or what have you, but you can see the rags and things. So the picture that I'm looking at right now, this barrel is completely corroded. Okay, the barrel, this is a 55-gallon drum. This is what chemicals, oil, petroleum products, etc., are typically transported in. And
Right.
this body was inside that barrel. Now, the barrel itself is corroded. Almost, I would say, a good 40% of this thing is just rotted. I'm looking at it right now. And within that, you can see this form that looks like some Ice Age mummy or something that they found out in the tundra so you
I,
can't.
I'm looking at the barrel right now, and it
Yeah.
looks like it just has taken a beating. We'll try and post these photos on the US Phenomenon website later, but yeah, the barrel just looks like beat the holy heck, and
Right.
especially with the gaping hole in it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which begs to question, okay, so wait a minute. So a portion of this barrel is, I mean, listen, I don't have that much experience with barrels being corroded to this extent, but it kind of gets back to your question, like, okay, so what does a human body look like at this point? And they can see what kind of shoes the person's wearing and the belt buckle and the shirt and all this. But yet the metal of the barrel itself is rusted off. It's really interesting. It's creepy and it's super morbid, but it's pretty fascinating at the same time.
Yeah, you'll have to share the link so we can post it, and so anybody who's interested, if you're young and don't take your kids there, and plus if they're up this late anyhow, why are they not in bed?
Yeah.
Or if they're listening, they're like me as a young child, they're like, listening to the radio at a very low level, and I'm going to say that's okay, but don't go looking for dead bodies.
Well, hey, but okay, it gets even better. So they also have some photos of the body, the second body that was found in the sediments. They've got like a jawbone here. I'm looking at the teeth but here again, I mean, it's almost amazing that, because the drought didn't start yesterday. It didn't start last year. It gets worse every day, but it's also kind of interesting that both of these bodies are found so closely together. You would have thought there would be a little bit more ramp up to this, which just makes you think, well, okay, if we found two in the matter of a week, then surely we're going to find more.
Oh, I'm looking at I found it on New York Post. Is this the New York? Yeah, the New York Post. Wow.
Yep.
I'm just blown away.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much left of the individual.
No.
But yeah. I mean, it looks like there's more body than there is barrel. I'll just be honest.
Yeah, no, it does look like that, and it's really interesting. And yeah, another thing I think that says mob hit is like you put the body into a barrel. I mean, like I say, I've never disposed of a body, but that does seem like an extra level of, you would think you would just weight the body down, but I guess putting it in a barrel, I don't know how they did it back in the day.
I mean, I don't know. I was talking with Mark Christopher, and we were talking about this earlier, and he said that, I was like, yeah, you just put the body in the barrel and just drop in. He goes, yeah, it's not that easy though. Cause when you die, there something happened. The body's buoyant. So you gotta do something to it. So either if they put cement in there or something to weigh it down, rocks or I'm sure cement. I'm assuming it must have been cement, but you can't really tell from the photos.
Well, Mario, another interesting thing about this. Okay, so we're talking about this lake and these bodies, and we think these are from the 70s and the 80s. But the other thing that's interesting, this is an example of how we find ancient archaeology and stuff, that things that have been submerged. So
Right.
we're kind of getting this local recent example of how we can find history. And in this particular case, we already mentioned, okay, so they got a super fortress in the bottom of this thing. We've got a town that was submerged so that they could build the lake itself. And then you think about all the man-made reservoirs across the US, and we're in this unprecedented um, drought throughout the Southwest. So there's going to be more of this. And it's just interesting that it popped up right now. So I think we'll see more for sure.
And here's the other thing too. There are people on the New York Post that are coming forward saying, "Hey, my family member went missing back in 1987, possibly a hotel employee, blah blah blah." And people are like coming forward with stories about family members that are missing that they think may be at the bottom of Lake Mead. I mean,
Yeah.
how terrible is that? You've gone this entire time. Let's say the person passed away 1987, and here you are bringing this back into the fold, 35 years later, and now you got to reopen the wound. You thought you healed from a situation, from a family member disappearing, and now you're like, maybe that they're at the bottom of Lake Mead.
That's true. I think they're taking the approach that, they're hoping that this will bring some form of closure to whoever these individuals are. And listen, science these days, forensic medicine, they probably will eventually, I would guess, figure out with a certain, with reasonable accuracy who these people are. It will be interesting to hear what their stories were and how and why these things happen to them.
Tonight, our guest is Michael Parker, joining us to talk about the horrific news. Interesting, intriguing on many levels that intrigue me, being someone who enjoys going to Vegas, to bring back the true Vegas, not the skyline in whatever that in Fremont Street, and you just do the zip line and you go to the Heart Attack Burger place and try to eat your way through the entire city of Vegas. Vegas is not what it used to be. The mob's like, this place is too carnival for me now. We're out,
Well, check this out. That as a result of finding these two bodies, I mean, I think they're probably getting increased tourism to Lake Mead now. And they also put out, I guess it was law enforcement, spoke to members of the public saying, listen, if you are scuba divers and you're skilled in these, in doing this kind of stuff, we are looking for volunteers now that we've gotten to this point, and we've already found 2 in a week. So they are looking for people to help them do further investigations. And, there is this very interesting aspect of this. So now people are going to go down to Lake Mead just out of curiosity. It's it's an interesting thing.
And around here, like Alki, Puget Sound, there are scuba clubs out here that are doing their thing by Salties. I know I see them down at Redondo Beach as well. What's interesting to me about that whole thing is, look, you guys are skilled, and they could use you down there. If you, need help, let us, contact us, and we'll put you in the right direction. So if you're a scuba diver and you want to help out, and you're like, oh, I want to go down to Lake Mead, this is a great time to go down there. Take a vacation, do some scuba diving. Maybe you find a bone. Maybe you find Art Bell at the bottom of the lake. I don't know what you're going to find. You may find anything in there, for God's sakes. They're finding boats. You're finding planes, for God's sakes. You're not going to find Art Bell. Art Bell's in a grave in Pahrump, Nevada.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be, a few watches and some Ray-Ban sunglasses and some firearms. And, there's God knows what all is out there.
I will post these or not these videos, but these pictures. We'll have links up to the pictures. When looking at the barrel, though, if you have a chance to look at the barrel, I don't know what angle you have, but it looks like that the barrel has like the bottom half, like the core. It's almost like a half moon. Well, it's
Yep.
more than half a moon there, but the other half of the bottom is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the body and the corroded barrel, but how the body is encased in there, more intact than the dang barrel itself.
Yeah, it is weird.
Very strange to me.
Well,
Very
and
strange.
listen, and law enforcement, I mean, they're being straight up. They're saying, look, there's very good chances that we will find more bodies, and they're investigating, trying to figure out who these people were. So it ain't over yet.
No, I think for me on this case, it brings to light the Green River killer. And if you're from the Northwest, or maybe you're not, and you're not familiar, most people know about the Green River killer and how that took place. And it took so long for them to finally find Gary Ridgway and to bring him to justice, as he continues to sit in a jail cell somewhere for the rest of his, natural existence on this planet. To me, I don't know that they're ever going to be able to solve these cases if they are mob cases. Now, if this was a murder and they're able to go back and maybe there's like a paint chip, like how they found Gary Ridgway, and they were able to match the paint with, the trucking company that he worked with. It's going to have to be something like you said earlier about the DNA that's really going to play key in this. So a lot of speculation on our part for sure.
Well, let me say this, Mario. I mean, the deal with DNA is like, if it's from the 70s and the early 80s, they didn't have large DNA databases. But to your point, they could do dental records, and certainly the person they found in the sediments, I mean, that jaw is intact. You can look at the teeth. So I would guess that, okay, we're going to triangulate. Okay, so the person in the barrel, we know they had these types of shoes on, which takes us to this time period. The person we find in the sediments, they have, enough teeth left in the jawbone. So, I mean, I'm amazed at what we can determine about cause of death, even after they exhume bodies sometimes. So, on one hand, yeah, you're right. They may not find out who it is, but I would not be surprised if they do find out who both of these people are.
And and to that point there, they collected so much evidence in going to Gary Ridgway's the River case, the Green River killer, that they were like collecting this stuff, fibers, paint chips. You don't really have that in this case. Well, from the scene. Okay, so you're going to get it now from this barrel that's been corroded.
Right.
So, okay, this barrel was from Chevron or whoever they find this barrel, and they go back. Okay, it's going to be, to me, very intriguing to watch this case continuing to grow and what they find out, because really all the evidence is right in one spot. It's not like when in the Ridgway, the river killer, Green River killer's case, they were taking, things that they were finding, fibers, hair, DNA samples, things of that nature. You're basically, you got one time capsule that now has been opened,
Mm-hmm.
and now we're going to find out where this is going to take us.
Well, another thing about the lake is this is so bad, as far as how bad the water has. Well, how bad the lack of the water. This is like it's the worst it's been since, I believe, like 1971. This is, and you look, just to get on the drought for a second, if you look at a lot of these lakes, man-made or otherwise, throughout the Southwest, it is unbelievable, man. You'll see like marinas that almost look like they're sitting on, almost very close to sitting on the ground. So, it's a fascinating story on one hand. On the other hand, it's scary because we need water. And
You're right about the levels about Lake Mead have changed. I was just looking for the levels from year to year. and the chart is pretty. The water levels have changed. They're in the past year. Oh, this is not the lake. Well, that's unfortunate. If I find them, I will bring them back to the table here.
Let me throw something else in there. Okay, so this Lake Mead is so big. It was, this isn't just providing water for people to drink. It's also a massive hydroelectric facility. And a lot of the man-made reservoirs, well, our portion of them were also, created to create energy. So it's it's a pretty heavy time, man. I mean, 2022 is not it. It's a rough period, man. We got a drought. We don't have enough food in the food chain, and it's it,
This
it's a science fiction movie, and we're living it.
Man, I'm sure there was a book that Art Bell and some other guy wrote back in the day. Perfect Storm, was that the book that?
That's right. Oh, and that was the guy with he wrote that with Whitley Schreiber, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, Whitley.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, look, times are tough right now. I mean, people are still getting sick from the Rona.
Yep.
People are like, it's not easy right now. You're paying the inflation, the shortage of things. Look, we live in a world, and I said this last week. Look, Americans, we're like drug addicts. We have come so accustomed to this lifestyle of having everything done for us. We don't even build our own stuff. It's like in the movie Back to the Future. The guy was, Doc was like, look at this thing. No wonder it fell. It was made in Japan. And then Marty says, the best stuff is made in China or Japan or whatever,
Mario, it's so bad that we're doing a radio show about finding bodies in the bottom of Lake Mead as a result of a drought. This sounds terrible, but it's kind of entertainment. It's interesting. We don't personally know these people. It's gotten to the point where we're looking for stories like this to get our minds off of other things.
And look, if you missed our last podcast about democracy, if it's dead, go listen to it. It's definitely worth its weight in gold. But this here, look, we're about to find out about things about the mob that I don't think we ever knew. And I think this is where it starts. Look, people, this stuff was real back in the day. Go watch Scarface, watch The Godfather, Goodfellas. You'll have an idea. I don't need to tell you this, but then you'll have a better idea of what the hell was going on with the mob back in the 70s, 80s, and before that as well, when, it was more like the 60s and in those early Vegas days.
You know what, Mario? I might be able to put you in touch with a couple of mob experts if you want to bring them on. And, I don't know what it's like where you're at, but I mean, this is on the news quite a bit here in LA. I mean, they're running the segments on these bodies, pretty frequently. I mean, it's an interesting story, and there's so many components of it. The drought, the climate change aspect, the mystery, the crime, the mafia, the whole 9 yards. It's a very interesting thing. And so let me drop one other thing in it. So what about the bodies that are, covered in sediments? Because the second body was found. Like I say, it's almost like Pirates of the Caribbean or something. The body was semi-submerged in the sediment. So even if you take the scuba divers out there, this becomes almost like a I'm trying to say this word correct. Like when we go look for bones of ancient reptiles and mammals, it's almost to that level, because there's going to be a lot of these bodies, if they're out there, that you're not going to see, because they're partially covered by the moving sediments of the lake when it was sloshing around.
So true. And the other thing too is, boat movement, current, things of that nature, where they dropped it off originally and how it, sloshed around as you said, and became, then settled. I think pound for pound, if you start looking here, I mean, it's simple. It's a simple thing now. Take a boat with radar and send out some chart, send some depth charts down, and you'll start to see the layout of the water. You find one barrel, that there must be something else out there. And then you cover the case. Okay, now we find 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 barrels. Okay, now you got yourself some serious mob issues here.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because you could go out in a boat and say you're law enforcement, say you're a hobbyist, just
Right.
like, you take a metal detector and you go look for jewelry or what have you. I don't know what, there are, the word evades me at the moment, but if I'm going fishing, there are certain devices that I can drop in the water where I can see, and I can see that there's fish. Well, I'm sure that there's also devices that you drop in the water that are like a metal detector that, oh, we got a ping right here. This is a big ping. This is a car. This is an airplane. This is another 55-gallon drum. So there's going to be some people that now go out there just for the adventure of it and start looking for things.
Is this the new geocaching?
Hey man, you got to spend your time somehow, right?
I mean, do you remember when they were doing that geocaching and they found that suitcase out here in West Seattle, is where they found this body in a suitcase?
Mario, it's going to happen because, there are the people that you go on YouTube and they'll shoot videos of them going into abandoned homes and whatever. And there's a term for it, like urban exploring or whatever you want to call it. No. So there's going to be there will be adventure seeking people who are going to uncover more vehicles, bodies, oddities.
And look, you can't tell me that the technology does not exist. Call the Coast Guard, call the Navy, tell them to put a little boat in there. Just scan. Just do a quick scan. You're going to find something.
Well, and also you don't have to scan as far now because there's no water. Your job would suddenly become a lot easier. You've got a lot less square footage to cover. And it's going to be really interesting. And here again, I think that's going to be largely hobbyists, because you talk about the Coast Guard, you talk about the police departments, their resources are going to be kind of tapped. I really do think the more that we talk about this, the more I think there's going to be people out there in like bass boats, and
right.
And they're going to be looking for remains.
Looking at from the 1930s, it looks like, that's the wrong one. Why does the Lake Mead levels? I can't find them. Dang it. Well, if I find them, I'll post them in the podcast. How about that? Yep. Our guest tonight, Michael Parker, hanging out with us this evening as we get close to wrapping things up here from the Pacific Northwest. Thank you to Mark Christopher. Again, to you for hanging out with us again. Tell us about your new show. Let's talk about that real quick before we get out of here.
Well, thank you, Mario. I appreciate that. I do have a new show. It's called Deprogram. It is on a new network out of Australia called TNT. And it is a lot of politics, a lot of current events, because there's a lot of things that need to be talked about. But like today, I had Stephen C. Meyer on in the third hour. We talked about his book, which is The Return of the God Hypothesis, which is the idea that there are scientific discoveries that point to the idea of intelligent design. So, I'm still trying to slip a little of my thing in there. We're covering the news of the day and the big issues of COVID, Ukraine,
right.
Things like that. So we're covering all of that, but I'm also trying to put some of this type of material in there. I'm on Monday through Friday, 3 hours a day. And if you just go to TNT Radio, you look for Deprogram, or if you just look for Michael Parker LA on social media, you're going to find me. And I would love to have people drop by and give me their thoughts.
Man, before we wrap things up, I had a chance to check it out, and man, I'm so proud of you. I'm so honored that we can still do things together and cross promote and things like that. And it's so fun to think we were talking 2 years ago. Oh my God, the president of the United States is about to die.
I remember that day because you texted me, because they were taking him to, and I feel like an idiot. Was it the Bethesda, Maryland hospital? Because we were talking live. They're flying the guy. They're flying Trump to the hospital. And yes. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah, me too. That was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done a lot of fun shows.
We have.
Karras and our boy Mark Jacobson. I know I just saw a
Oh,
post.
Mark was on my show the other day. Thank you for reminding me of that. So if you guys want to hear about Bill Cooper, because it was his birthday on May 6th.
Yes.
So yeah, Mark Jacobson came on. That's in the archives. You can find that. I also did a UFO show with my buddy Martin Keller, who has a book called The Space Pen Club, because he worked with C. SETI and Stephen Greer for going on 10 years. He's also a rock journalist from Minneapolis, so we were able to mix into pop culture too. But yeah, I'm getting to do a few of my thing in there as well.
That's good. I love that. I'm glad that you're able to, put your add your own seasoning to it.
My own little special recipe.
Right? And in the mob may too. So watch out as we wrap things up from the Pacific Northwest. Any last thoughts about this case? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think they're going to find more barrels, or do you think this is just, I didn't even talk about this. We talk
Bring it. We got a second? Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we got some time. What's interesting is we didn't talk about this. The other I said opportunities, other ways to dispose of the body. Why the hell? Because casinos were going through, they had the buffets back in the day. Such a big deal. Just throw the body in the garbage.
Well, okay, so that is what I'm getting at, which is, when we were trying to figure out, okay, let's speculate on what kind of a role this person played within the Las Vegas scene.
Right.
Okay, so I'm thinking, if I'm big time mob boss,
right,
I have access to incinerators, and I mean that's probably, if I was inclined to do such an act, I think that's what I would try to do. But on the other hand, I mean, if you're living large, you never get caught. Yeah, let's just pitch him in the lake. I forgot where I was going with that, but I do think that these days, 2022, if I was going to do this, I would certainly think twice now about putting a body in a body of water.
See, someone brought to my attention the other day, or was it today, Jimmy Hoffa still has not been found.
That's right.
Is that Hoffa?
I don't think so, but that's still a good point. I mean, I don't know where Jimmy Hoffa is. And so one of these law enforcement officials made the joke, well, we don't know who it is, but we don't think it's Jimmy Hoffa. But still, even taken in jest, that's a good point, because we don't know where that guy is. And so they put him somewhere. Did they put him in the end zone of that one particular football field? I don't know. But
yeah.
Low Tech is throwing the guy out in the barrel in the water. And at the time, it probably looked like a pretty good bet that nobody's ever going to find this. And here we are in May of 2022, and it's found.
Oh, I love this. I can't wait to see how this turns out. By the way, we got to do another, I know we've done like 2 shows on the Maxwell and Epstein.
Oh man. Yeah, we do have to talk about that. And you and I were texting about that. So that's another thing. And I feel like I'm almost speaking out of turn because I've not done my homework. I've been too busy but I did speak with Conchita Sarnoff a couple of weeks ago, and we were catching up on Ghislaine, and the fact that in December, when the verdict came down, the guilty verdict, within like 72 hours, one juror began to admit that either intentionally or unintentionally, they didn't check off a couple of boxes. Well, it wasn't just one. As it turns out, there was, I think, 3 or 4 of these people that then it looks like they didn't fill out those whatever they call that form correctly. So to me, that always led to the possibility that if I were defense for Ghislaine going forward, I would use that as grounds for an appeal. Well, apparently this past week, the judge very quietly dropped 2 of those charges against her, and I haven't had time to look into it. But yeah, we should do that. We should do that. We should talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's time again, and I want to go back to the Northwest angle to it. Because we're from the Northwest, and I talked about this a long time ago back in the podcast days.
Hey, Mario, there was a guy that just died that apparently, Mark Middleton, he was 59 years old. He just died. I'm not sure if it was natural causes or just the Clinton curse. because he was a person who allowed Epstein into the White House. I don't know, 30, 50 times or something. So that just came out today.
Under which president?
I think it was under Clinton, but I'd have to go back and look. But he certainly was involved with the Clintons, and I believe his name was Mark Middleton, and he had helped Epstein gain access to the White House dozens and dozens of times. And that just came out today.
Oh, I'm sorry that he passed away. Oof.
Hey, listen, the CDC needs to look into that. Okay. So your proximity to the Clinton family could be detrimental to your health. I'm just kidding, folks. I'm just kidding.
It's all tongue in cheek. We're all here just having a good time. As we wrap things up from the Pacific Northwest, I'd like to thank our guest tonight, Michael Parker. You can find him on his social handles at Michael Parker LA. For the entire team, Mark Christopher, Sophia Magana, and myself, Mario Magana. Remember to look up at the sky or in the lake, because you never know what you might see. Good night.
Good night.